Bray Wyatt may be back in WWE, but that doesn't mean the mysterious QR code teasers are disappearing anytime soon, because last night on Raw, not only did we hear from Wyatt, but also we saw another QR code hinting to this week's episode of SmackDown. We're going to break all of that down. Plus, Brock Lesnar is back in WWE. He returned last night and seemingly has set up a feud with Bobby Lashley. A United States Championship change did happen as a result of the Beast's return. We'll talk about that. Plus, the Good Brothers, they are also back in WWE too. We'll talk about their return, their feud with the Judgment Day. A Ring of Honor former champion was backstage at Raw last night. D-Generation X reunited on the 25th anniversary of their formation. Elias is coming back too, and Ronda Rousey is now a heel on WWE's internal roster. Plus, we've got the ratings from this week's edition of SmackDown. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of WWE. And of course, last night was the season premiere of Monday Night Raw from the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. And man, it was a jam-packed show. Therefore, we've got a jam-packed show today. So let's get straight into the first story, talking about the return of Bray Wyatt. Let's get what happened last night up on the screen, because these QR codes, the mysteries regarding the QR codes are continuing, even though Bray Wyatt is back. So even though the White Rabbit mystery reveal may have occurred at WWE Extreme Rules, the QR codes continue. Now you can see it on the screen right there. Whilst The Miz was preparing for his birthday segment, in the background of a segment with The Miz and Maurice, where she gifted him a baseball bat for his birthday in advance of an in-ring celebration of the event, you can see on the screen there was a man in a hoodie which was clearly marked with a QR code on his sweatshirt. Now, if you scan the QR code, you are taken to this. Now, it takes you to a retro-looking video. It looks like you're on Windows XP or Windows 2000 or Windows, how far back did it go? Windows 97. Anyway, it's old. It takes you back to a really old, retro-looking video of a puzzle being put together with the tune in the background of He's Got the Whole World in His Hands, which of course is the same tune that Bray Wyatt sung when he made his return this past Saturday at Extreme Rules. Now, which when it comes together, it reveals this. When it comes together, it reveals itself to be the upside-down butterfly design or moth design featured in the return segment of Bray Wyatt, and also the same logo that is featured in Bray Wyatt's Twitter profile picture. Now, while there's been a lot of speculation regarding what the characters in the back of the puzzle could mean, there is certainly a plausible answer which can be figured out, which points to the message of Bray Wyatt actually arriving, or certainly being seen in person once again this coming Friday night on SmackDown. Now, the QR code, as I mentioned, has JNV in the background. Now, simple logic would state that J is the 10th letter of the alphabet, N is the 14th letter of the alphabet, V is the 22nd letter of the alphabet. So what do you get there? You get 10, 14, 22. Of course, that could look like October the 14th, 2022. That, of course, is this coming Friday night on SmackDown. So even though Bray Wyatt's back, it doesn't mean that these QR codes are going away anytime soon. So certainly that is very interesting. Now, in addition to Bray Wyatt, we did actually hear from Wyatt last night. We'll talk on that in a second. But in addition to that, there is actually some new merchandise for Bray Wyatt as well. You can see that on the screen right there too. After his return and all of this White Rabbit stuff that's been going on, certainly the White Rabbit's been a huge amount of a merchandise mover for WWE. That merchandise sold like hotcakes for the company, and they're wasting no time churning out more merchandise for their newly returned star. The final shot, as I mentioned, of Extreme Rules saw Bray Wyatt blow out his lantern before a weird image appeared on the screen, whilst that old Wyatt family static sound played in the background. The logo is this same logo, as I mentioned, that's been on Bray Wyatt's Twitter account, this sort of upside down moth creature logo. They've already put merchandise out on the website. They're naming it, interestingly, as Bray Wyatt Moth t-shirt, so we know it is a moth, certainly. And when it also comes to SmackDown, this coming week, Bray Wyatt has indeed been advertised for this week's episode of SmackDown. So again, That's what the QR code was pointing to. But Bray Wyatt also did speak to the WWE Universe for the first time since returning this past Saturday at Extreme Rules, and the long-awaited return of Bray Wyatt at the Extreme Rules Premium Live event this past Saturday is already being considered as, by some, one of the best returns in WWE history. His past characters appeared through different parts of the arena before Wyatt knocked the door down, walked through the door with his lantern in hand. Prior to that, just like on Raw last night, several QR codes had also appeared during WWE programming leading up to the event. The song White Rabbit played for live audiences during commercial breaks as well. But Wyatt has now officially addressed the WWE Universe for the first time since making his return. During last night's edition of Monday Night Raw, a video from Bray Wyatt interrupted commentators Corey Graves and Kevin Patrick. This is what Wyatt had to say, quote, "I used to think that the prison inside my head was the only place I could truly be free," Wyatt said, as images of his new mask flashed upon the screen. You can see kind of what it is there. And then he said, "Revel in what you are." Now, it's certainly interesting because in the past, the whole Firefly Funhouse gimmick and the Fiend, he kind of had touched upon, and again, we never really sort of got this padded out, but the idea was initially, I believe, is that the old Bray Wyatt, the Eater of Worlds, the new Face of Fear, whatever you want to call him, that version of Bray Wyatt had essentially gone insane. That was the story that he tried to tell. If you go back to those original Firefly Funhouse vignettes, is that Wyatt had gone away after losing himself and after suffering defeats in WWE, he had gone away and just become completely insane to the point where he had developed this split personality. He had developed this fun-loving Mr. Rogers-esque character that you saw in the Firefly Funhouse, but also he had developed this sinister alter ego. He had released this demon inside of him, and he kind of didn't even realize that they were both the same person. Bray Wyatt used to just refer to him as him, and that was the story. And if you look at the promo that he said last night, he mentions that I used to think that the prison inside my head was the only place I could truly be free, whereas maybe now this new version of Wyatt is actually embracing all of these different personalities he has. So that's certainly very, very interesting. Of course, I know some people were like, oh, I wanted to see more from Bray Wyatt. I think they're saving that for SmackDown Friday. It would appear that whilst Wyatt did technically appear on Raw last night, he's probably going to appear on SmackDown more going forward, certainly. But that wasn't the only return we also saw last night. We also saw the return of the Beast, Brock Lesnar. You can see that on the screen right there. Brock Lesnar is back. Brock Lesnar returned to WWE programming on the season premiere episode of Monday Night Raw. Lesnar made a surprise appearance and entrance before Seth freaking Rollins, could make his way to the ring for his scheduled United States Championship match against Bobby Lashley. Lesnar confronted Lashley in the ring and attacked him after a few words, most likely setting up a match between the two for the upcoming Crown Jewel Premium Live event in November. Now, of course, Lesnar's most recent WWE appearance was in the main event of SummerSlam this past August in a last man standing match against Roman Reigns for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. In a rematch of what was billed by WWE as the biggest WrestleMania match of all time, Lesnar appended the ring with a tractor before ultimately losing two reigns after getting most of the announcer's desk piled upon him. Now, a match between Lesnar and Lashley would actually be a rematch. It'd only be the second time the two men have ever faced off one-on-one in a ring. The first, of course, came earlier this year at the Royal Rumble, and in that encounter, Lashley actually defeated Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship, but only after the interference of Reigns and the betrayal of Paul Heyman. Now, Lesnar ultimately took back the WWE Championship from Lashley in February at the Elimination Chamber event in Saudi Arabia. However, the two never met in the ring. Lashley was removed from the Chamber match due to a storyline injury. However, he was actually legitimately injured. He was sidelined for weeks after that with a legitimately injured shoulder. So it makes sense that Brock would come back. It certainly makes sense that Brock would come back to face off against Bobby Lashley. I mean, in terms of him picking a fight with Bobby, I guess you could argue he came back and just, I want to avenge that loss. You defeated me this past January, and you've said that you've got the beating of Brock Lesnar. I've never pinned you. I've never defeated you, and I want to wipe that from my record. So certainly that would make sense, and it was reported yesterday, and it wasn't actually widely reported as a fact, but of course it was Mike Johnson, wasn't it, a PW insider, that said, just got a hunch, I'm thinking that Brock's going to return tonight. It's the season premiere of Raw, and most importantly, Crown Jewel is a couple of weeks away. Just over 3 weeks away, and Brock Lesnar has appeared on every single Saudi show. There's death, there's taxes, and there's Brock Lesnar getting that Saudi money. And that's exactly what he's going to do, seemingly against Bobby Lashley. And just to look a little bit forwards, he's going to win. Brock Lesnar's going to beat Bobby Lashley. This is a very easy match to predict. Because look at it, Brock Lesnar, since he's returned to WWE, he has done so many jobs. He's done so many losses. Yes, he's won a couple of big matches. He won the Royal Rumble. He won the WWE Championship in that Elimination Chamber match and was dominant in doing so. But every time he's wrestled Roman Reigns in these singles matches, he's lost. So Brock, ironically, and you can argue Brock Lesnar, it doesn't really matter if he wins or loses, but the whole point, the whole billing of Brock is that he's this undefeatable ass-kicking machine. If he does too many jobs, then where's his value there? And Bobby Lashley actually already owns a victory over Brock Lesnar, so it can be 50-50. He got his win earlier this year. I think WWE and Triple H will look at it as it's time to get Brock's win back, and that's what he's going to do. He's going to come into Saudi, he's going to beat Bobby Lashley. Unfortunately, then he's going to disappear for a while. Not too long, though, because, of course, he's scheduled for day 1 in January. So he'll only be gone for around 6 weeks or so, something like that, before he returns to WWE. Then he'll be on television, I would assume, for quite a long period of time. We've seen how regular Brock Lesnar was on television this past January through April, and I would expect that to be largely the same. So Brock will beat Bobby, be gone for a little bit, and then come back around towards the end of December, beginning of January, actually towards the end of September, because he's going to have to build up to that day 1 event. So he won't be gone too long, logically, you would think as well. So certainly he set that up, and to be honest, I mean, I hope the match is better than the one at the Royal Rumble. It didn't click. It was awkward. It looked like Lashley was injured in it. I mean, if I recall, Bobby Lashley actually got injured maybe during the match. Some of those German suplexes he was taking were horrible. And he was kind of doing it last night. Brock's obviously going to do German suplexes, and Lashley just insists on rotating every time and it's going to land on his shoulder. It's horrible, absolutely horrible. So it would appear that Brock and Lashley are going to face off in Saudi at the Crown Jewel event. But the attack from Brock Lesnar also, to add insult to injury, not only did Lashley get a beating, but he's no longer US champion because Seth freaking Rollins then had his match with Bobby Lashley and captured the United States Championship. Seth freaking Rollins was crowned the new WWE United States Champion on the season premiere of Monday Night Raw. As I mentioned, just before the match, Brock Lesnar returned, dropped the Almighty with 2 F5s, a German suplex, eventually locked in the Kimura lock as well, with Lashley grimacing in pain. His title defense against Rollins was put in doubt, with the announcers questioning the reasons for Lesnar's actions. The referees continued to check on Lashley at ringside. Rollins made his way to the ring with his ribs taped up. Of course, he had that fight pit match against Matt Riddle this past Saturday. Rollins then demanded that Lashley get in the ring and fight him, even as the referees convinced Lashley to retreat to the back. Rollins then got on the microphone and mentioned how Lashley is supposed to be a fighter, a champion, and a soldier, but he is actually a disgrace to the United States title and a disgrace to his country. An infuriated Lashley then limped down to the ring with his left arm dangling as he continued to ignore calls from WWE officials not to wrestle. Basically, Lashley was a dumb babyface. Once the bell rang, Lashley immediately attempted a spear, but Rollins countered into a pedigree. Lashley kicked out at 2. They tried to keep him as strong as possible, following which Rollins hit a top rope frog splash, followed by a stomp attempt. Lashley eventually tried to fight back a little bit, but Rollins targeted Lashley's injured left arm, finished off Lashley with the stomp, and then got the victory. The victory marked Rollins' first singles title victory in WWE since he held the Universal title on 2 separate occasions in 2019. The first time Rollins has held a singles title in about 3 years. Rollins also became a 2-time Grand Slam champion, only the second 2-time Grand Slam champion in WWE history. Of course, it's not the second. I think it's the second time he's held the United States Championship after holding the championship after defeating John Cena, of course, back at SummerSlam in 2015. But good for Seth Rollins. I mean, I know Rollins lost against Riddle this past weekend at Extreme Rules in the Fight Pit, but he did win a Clash at the Castle, so he's somewhat whole in that case. But he deserves it. Whilst there isn't a World Championship on Raw, and I know Roman Reigns and the Bloodline were on the show last night, but whilst there isn't a World Championship on Raw, Rollins deserves it. The work he's done in his career, I'd put this year, in terms of Rollins' work as a character and in the ring, up against anything he's ever done in WWE. Yes, he's had better years in terms of championships. Yes, he's had better years in terms of main events, but look at what he's achieved. Look at his work. Look at his work this year in WWE. The tag team with Kevin Owens, the feud with Cody Rhodes, the feud with Matt Riddle. He absolutely deserves it. The match of Roman Reigns earlier this year at Royal Rumble, which they still haven't paid off. So now it's time for Rollins to be the champion. And frankly, Rollins as US champion, we're going to get some fantastic US championship matches going forward. And that's really exciting. Look at the work Triple H has done with the Intercontinental Championship on SmackDown. Rollins can do just the same with that title on Raw. So I'm really glad for Rollins, and I think it sets up, you know, Lashley and Lesnar well. I'm interested now to see who Rollins will face off against. Logically, you could say that once Brock is done with Bobby Lashley, then we'll see Rollins versus Lashley once again on Raw. But I kind of want, you know, Rollins to pivot off into some other people on Monday Night Raw. So that's going to be really interesting to see there as well. But that wasn't the only noteworthy thing. I said it was a jam-packed show on Raw last night. The Good Brothers, they are back. This was reported before Raw last night too, and it was indeed confirmed as Doc Gallows, Luke Gallows, whatever you want to call him, and Carl Anderson made their WWE return during last night's season premiere of Monday Night Raw, confirming an earlier PW Insider report that the tag team would be returning to the company in the near future. The pair made their return to reform the OC and assist AJ Styles in a brawl against the Judgment Day, of course. Gallows and Anderson were released by WWE in April of 2020. They were last seen on WWE programming fighting alongside the aforementioned Styles in his Boneyard match against The Undertaker at WrestleMania 36. Now, again, this is really interesting because they're still linked with New Japan. Carl Anderson is the reigning never openweight champion in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and the status of the championship for the immediate future is now pretty unknown. Anderson won the title from Tama Tonga in June at the Dominion event. He's scheduled to be defending his title, I believe, on November 5th at Battle Autumn against Hikuleo. New Japan World were actively retweeting the Good Brothers' return to WWE, so I don't know if WWE's come to some kind of agreement with the Good Brothers. AEW are international partners of New Japan Pro Wrestling. It's just a really interesting situation. I mentioned this yesterday. I really went in depth with it, so I won't go too much in depth with it once again. But the reason it's so surprising here is because we you know, one, they said they would never go back to WWE, but two, they're still booked. They're still booked with New Japan. They're going to be at Wrestle Kingdom in January, logically, you would think. So I don't know if this is short term. I don't know if this is long term. It certainly is interesting. Now, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful has also posted an interesting report about Gallows and Anderson whilst they were still under their deals with Impact Wrestling. Gallows and Anderson are back in WWE, and it's getting really wild. As I mentioned, they appeared on Raw last night to reform a Bullet Club combo with AJ Styles, while Carl Anderson is the active never openweight champion. Anderson and Gallows had indicated to Fightful that WWE had interest in them as early as this summer when they were still under contract with Impact Wrestling. The two were very transparent about the interest towards the end of their Impact Wrestling contracts, which ended up going a month longer than previously expected. Now, Fightful have asked if Anderson and Gallows still have plans to work New Japan Pro Wrestling dates, and they will post an update if and when they get an answer. They were originally told that Gallows and Anderson were committed to work with New Japan through Wrestle Kingdom, as I mentioned, but last they heard, and maybe this is the key aspect in all of this, they did not have contracts with the company. Hence why they were able to sign with WWE as well. That's certainly really interesting. So you could argue the reason why this is all possible is because whilst they had given commitments and whilst they're factored in with plans with New Japan until January, there was no ink on paper. Therefore, WWE is able to get a deal with them. Kind of the similar way to Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross was booked for all of these events, Control Your Narrative, NWA, MLW, but he wasn't under contract to anyone, so WWE could come sweeping in, and I guess that's really what happened. Now we're going to see a feud clearly between the OC and the Judgment Day with Finn Balor, and I thought the segment was great. They got a huge pop. They're going to clearly have a match. Maybe at Saudi, maybe Survivor Series. That would kind of make sense there as well. There's lots of different avenues, and there's lots of different factions popping up in WWE right now, isn't there? There's obviously the Bloodline, now the OC, the Judgment Day, possibly a Bray Wyatt faction too. There's a lot going on, possibly to set up maybe a War Games match in the future. That's really interesting too. Now, backstage, reportedly, there was a lot of people backstage, including former Ring of Honor champions. Now, earlier this year at Ring of Honor's Death Before Dishonor pay-per-view, the Righteous, which is Vincent Bateman and Dutch, dropped their Ring of Honor 6-man tag team championships to Dalton Castle and the Boys. Since then, each Righteous member has gone on to do their own thing. Vincent has been seen in Impact Wrestling recently as part of the Honor No More faction. Bateman has wrestled across the Indies. Meanwhile, Dutch has not wrestled in a match in over 2 months. With the news breaking that Vincent, along with his fellow Honor No More members Matt Taven, Mike Bennett and Maria Kanellis Bennett, have come to the end of their Impact run, a new interesting story has come to light. According to PW Insider, Vincent and Dutch were backstage for last night's edition of Raw in Brooklyn, though neither appeared on camera during the show. This isn't the first time one of the former Righteous members have been connected to WWE. Dutch appeared in FCW in 2010 and 2011. Dutch and Vincent haven't teamed up in the past few months, so it could be interesting. Of course, Triple H seemingly is going on a massive signing spree, so I don't really know what his plans are, and I don't really know where they would fit in WWE right now. You can let me know your thoughts about that one in the comment section below. DX reunited last night on Monday Night Raw, and some people indicated the opening of the show, the cold open, was a shot at AEW. Now, the cold open, Triple H was spotted backstage along with Shawn Michaels, Sean Waltman, Road Dogg, as well as head of the show. Now, Triple H was attempting to warn his DX members to be on their best behavior. He dropped lines that could raise eyebrows. There was a lot of swearing, cursing that they bleeped out, akin to the famous or infamous promo with Shawn Michaels and Triple H and China, when it was the whole, USA Network has told us not to say these names, and they bleeped them out, etc. Now, he also then had comments, Triple H, that said, quote, trying to run a business here and no fighting. They seem innocent enough. Some people are saying, oh, was that a shot at AEW? I don't know. Possibly. Who cares? I actually thought the opening segment was well done. I know that's childish humor and all that kind of stuff, but I thought it was fine. Now, as I mentioned, they had this this reunion to close the show. Road Dogg embraced the vintage by saying Geriatric X instead of D-Generation X. There was plenty of fun callbacks throughout the segment. Road Dogg did half of his New Age Outlaws entrance. He held the mic to the crowd, who added in Billy Gunn's name, saying, Graves said on commentary, quote, that other guy is doing something with office equipment nowadays. Sean Waltman, X-Pac, made the reference to a special piece of DX, the 9th wonder of the world, China, as well. According to DX member Shawn Michaels, he said if DX is still out there in 25 more years, fans need to promise them to put them out of their misery. It was fun. And again, Raw was a stacked show, so I thought it was all fun. It's fine. I don't have any desire to see another DX reunion. We've seen enough of them over the years, but last night, 25 years, crowd was into it, so it's fine. Elias is on his way back. Yes, WWE once again stand for Walk with Elias. The Drifter returns to WWE on next week's Raw from Oklahoma City. The big announcement came last night, confirming his return for the show. There was no mention of Elias possibly doing a concert or a wrestling match or anything like that. Now, Elias was last seen on August 15 on Monday Night Raw with his entire family, including his father, Early Jr., his brother Elrod, showing up in a hospital to support Ezekiel a week after the Elias's younger brother was put out of commission by an enraged Kevin Owens. It had been reported previously that basically the Ezekiel character is done, and it's only Elias, and Elias would be returning to WWE once his beard had grown back out. It would appear that his beard has grown back out, or enough to return to television. So Ezekiel is no more, Elias is back, and he will be back to his original character. So Elias is going to be back next week. Ronda Rousey is now a heel. Yes, it took a little while, but Ronda Rousey is the new SmackDown Women's Champion. She defeated Liv Morgan this past weekend at Extreme Rules. But according to PW Insider, Rousey is now listed internally on the WWE roster as a heel and will continue to be listed as such going forward. The report further noted this doesn't come as a surprise, as Rousey's direction on screen suggested the former UFC champion would be turning sooner rather than later. It also reported that the Brawling Brutes are now listed as babyfaces on the internal roster as well. Good. I'm glad that Ronda Rousey is a heel, because she's just not, no disrespect, but she's not very likable. She's not. And, I think she'd do great as a heel. I think, if anything, she'd get over as a heel and then she could transition back into a babyface. Clearly, for me, they're building to WrestleMania next year, WrestleMania 39, Inglewood, California, Ronda Rousey as a heel, Becky Lynch as a babyface. They're finally going to do the singles match. That's what they're building towards. That's what people want to see, and they're going to do that at WrestleMania next year. Finally, speaking of SmackDown, we have the ratings for Friday's episode. Per Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics, SmackDown drew 2.243 million viewers. This is up from the September 30 edition that drew 2.207 million viewers. In the 18 to 49 demographic, the show scored a 0.54 rating, which is actually equal to the same week prior. SmackDown finished number 3 in the demo for the night. Of course, it was the season premiere of the show, featuring a main event for the Intercontinental Championship as Gunther defeated Sheamus to retain his title. So there you go, guys. That's the latest WWE news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's WWE news stories in the comment section below, and I'll speak for you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.